Welcome to the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook. We got RT Young, another great addition to talk about a little bit of Longhorn sports and a little bit of Longhorn sports adjacent. We will talk about where do all the good defensive tackles come from. Texas now has 3 in the class with Corey Wells, Vodney Cleveland, and Dylan Berryman, and they come from places Texas doesn't always head toward when they recruit, but they're going there for a good reason. And then Schadenfreude, maybe sympathy of the week to go along with the end of the NBA Finals, but definitely some Schadenfreude as well as we look at the College World Series and LSU. Congrats to them. But RT, Texas is looking about as good as they can in defensive tackle recruiting. They have the 3 that I mentioned. Dylan Berryman is from the Monroe, Louisiana area, North Louisiana. Corey Wells is from Petal, small town in Mississippi, kind of outside Hattiesburg. And then Vodney Cleveland is from Birmingham. They're after Kendall Guerville, who's from Fort Myers in Florida. They're also after James Johnson, who's from Miami. And granted, these are places that, for a variety of reasons, Texas didn't go to often in the past, decade or so.
Yeah, I think you really see it underscore the entire approach of Steve Sarkisian's recruiting, and especially Kenny Baker now is fully on board with it. Last year, you had Texas go into the state of Georgia and grab a 5-star deluxe in Justice Terry, went to, I believe, Florida to get Myron Charles. And then obviously to the West Coast in getting Josiah Sharma, flipped him from Oregon. So you really see a national approach to recruiting when it comes to Sark that is definitely very different than just a decade ago under Mac Brown, where I made a joking comment over the weekend, whereas he was almost lived in fear of the Texas high school coaches to a degree and not wanting to upset them. So there would be times where he wouldn't get in on these national recruitments almost out of fear in these premium NFL positions like defensive line, offensive line, wide receiver, and quarterback. And Sark is not afraid of that. Sark says, hey, we're going to be in the SEC. We're going to take advantage of that, and we're going to recruit Southeast players, and we're going to have that SEC logo on our chest and point to our NFL draft results of the past couple of years and recruit the whole country. I love it.
I wonder with Mac Brown if that was because during his time there just weren't as many FBS programs in the state of Texas. So all these high school coaches are like, you're denying our kids opportunities. Now, if they go to Atlanta or if they go to New Orleans, and this is kind of a little bit tangential to the topic. Now they know that they can go to Baylor, Tech, Texas State, UTEP, all these different places. Anyway, a little bit beside the point. But Steve Sarkisian obviously has ties to Alabama in the Southeast, even from a couple of years there. He brought with him Jeff Banks, Kyle Flood, AJ Milwee, several different coaches who at Alabama with him came to Texas. Steve Sarkisian obviously has his West Coast ties. And then you add in Kenny Baker, who basically coached in this triangle around Chattanooga, Huntsville, Alabama, which is a north part of the state, and then kind of Atlanta, I guess to say, in the Southeast. And I guess Kenny Baker told him, hey, this is where you can go and get some great defensive tackles, and I know this area. And it's also good for Texas, A, NIL, and B, being in the SEC to where they don't have to get into the seedy underbelly, and we know Texas doesn't always love doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also they have great proof of concept from the last 2 drafts that they took. Obviously, Alfred Collins was a 5-star, but Tavondre Sweat at one time, he was a under-recruited 3-star. I believe Byron Murphy, he might have ended up as a 4-star, but he was definitely a 3-star at one point. And then Vernon Broughton was kind of a mid-grade 4-star, and they put and then Barron Sorrell, obviously, too. He was from Louisiana. But the other 4 that I mentioned were all Texas homegrown guys who were all developed at Texas and made into NFL picks. And obviously with guys like Sweat and Murphy, the raw traits were there, but Texas is the one who put him in the NFL, and they can point to that now on a broader scale and say, hey, look at what we did with these guys who were more raw than you were when they were coming to this program. And let's put you in the NFL too. So the sales pitch for that position specifically is at an all-time high. Maybe the only time where it's Texas has had a better pipeline on the defensive line to the NFL would be like the mid to late 90s, which had like Casey Hampton and Tony Brackens and guys like that. But that was just a completely different time in recruiting, as we both know. So I don't think that the NFL pitch mattered as much then. And obviously recruiting was just so much more regional, which we just mentioned. So I think they have an all-time sales pitch right now, and they're taking advantage of it. But as Eric has said many times, we think this is going to be a four-man defensive tackle class, which is important, definitely given the fact that they just had to take 5 DTs out of the transfer portal to really regrow that pipeline after taking 3 last year. So interested to see who that fourth guy is going to be. And I know there's some RPMs in, but it'll be interesting time from now until signing day.
Got some data visualization to show you, but before we do that, got to show some love to our sponsor, that is Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description, as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
So I got the data up on the screen. I looked through the past, 15 NFL drafts, the first round from 2011 to 2025. And I was just looking, where do the first round defensive tackles come from? And I didn't go as far as which school they came from, although, as you can tell, it may skew a little bit southeast. But I went high school. There were no IMG Academy guys to throw things off. There wasn't anything, from the, just way out of left field, although there was a first round pick who's from Wyoming who went to Florida, I think Tavon Baker or something like that. Tavon Bryan played for the Jaguars. But if you look, you can see the dark blue represents states that produced one first-round defensive tackle in those 15 drafts. I'm a little surprised by Louisiana. But as you can tell, you can get a guy from Wyoming. You can get a guy from Utah. Connecticut has one. The one from New York's from Staten Island, which I found to be pretty incredible. You can also, and then the orange is 2, Tennessee, North Carolina, Michigan had a couple, Pennsylvania, Maryland. I think there may be one more, but I can't remember. Dark blue is 3. And you can tell, well, I may have messed up the date of it. Oh, that's green. Never mind. I just can't see on this tiny little screen. You can see that Texas with Byron Murphy, Malcolm Brown fits in here. I think there was I forget who it was. There was someone from Sulphur Springs who I believe left the state and then went to another college and got drafted. And then 4, you can see it's Georgia and California. But in that 3 group, you can see Texas, you can see Alabama, you can see Mississippi, you can see Florida. And guess where Texas is recruiting their defensive linemen right now?
Yeah, exactly. From those states that are colored a nice, pretty shade of green and blue, which is awesome to see. It's pretty shocking that I just learned, I looked it up as you were talking, that I didn't realize Vita Vea was not from Hawaii. He's from California. So he would fit in this data point as a Californian as well. But yeah, I always thought he was a giant Hawaiian high schooler like Leonga Lafau that ended up with Pete Kwiatkowski at Washington. But how about Wyoming jumping in there?
Yeah,
that's impressive. Who was that? I was
surprised. It was that guy I was talking about from hold on. Taven Bryan, that was his name, from Florida, 2018 draft. And of course the other Texan, the third Texan first rounder was Ed Oliver. So Ed Oliver, Malcolm Brown, and Byron Murphy. that makes up the 3 first rounders from the state of Texas. But Alabama, well represented, Mississippi, well represented, but just you can see the skewing of I guess it's this way, the skewing of the map towards the southeast. And that's why Texas is going there, but still not ignoring California as well, as you can see from someone like Josiah Sharma.
Yeah. And obviously Sark having the West Coast ties. I think that's one thing that Sark is at, he's compared to Texas coaches past who didn't really have a area of the country that they specialized in. I think Sark is great because he had California and he had the Southeast already. And then he almost got to add Texas later, where he was already strong in those other 2 areas. So it was almost like Texas became the bonus, where, Charlie Strong really wanted to be loyal to Florida. Tom Herman had almost just kept recruiting the same players he was recruiting at U of H, which was not necessarily a winning strategy at the University of Texas. And I can't even remember what Mac Brown's initial strategy was. Obviously, I know how it evolved, but I was a little too young to follow recruiting back in 98, 99.
Of course, the 3 from Alabama, Deron Payne, Quinnen Williams, Marcel Darius, they all went to Alabama. The guys from Mississippi, I can find that in just a second. Jeffrey Simmons from Mississippi State, Fletcher Cox, and Nick Fairley. Nick Fairley went to Auburn. Fletcher Cox went to Mississippi State. Jeffrey Simmons went to Mississippi State. And then Georgia definitely leads the way, along with California. That's Derek Brown, not the Texas Derek Brown, Devontae Wyatt, Robert Nkemdiche, which kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier about the seedy underbelly of some of these recruitments. And then Sheldon Rankins, who ended up going to Louisville too, which proves you can find, even if you find a lower ranked guy, and I can't remember if he was lower ranked, but if you find someone who may not be in the top 500 like Rankins was, they can still end up producing. Going to California too. I'm going to check that one real quick once this loads back up. You had Sheldon Richardson, who went to Missouri, Kenny Clark. Don't mess up on me here. Mason Graham. And I think there's one more, but it's not popping up for me. So you're just looking at the way populations work. California has 60 million people or something like that. While people can, lament about the lack of football talent out there, there's still so many people out there. There's going to be a big guy out there like Josiah Sharma. But you can just see, Ian, Paul, even Eric talk about population dynamics. And I think they even talked about it on a deep dive recently where, look at California, look at Arizona, especially with USC at the time, they were mentioning them as a dwindling power. May not be a dwindling power either as far as football goes or purchasing power. But again, there's so many players out there that if there's something you like, go out there and look for it. The other thing is, as we know, Texas is very, very cyclical. And if you have these connections and you don't like the talent in state, Jamie Winfield is basically the only major priority defensive tackle in state. He's committed to USC right now. He was a move in from Mississippi. So if you remove him
this past offseason too, so he almost doesn't even count. And look at him, right, committed to USC. So it's obvious, he wasn't necessarily, he's not somebody who's going to you're not going to appeal to him with the stay in state sales pitch. He's just moved already, has no problem going out to the West Coast.
Any other data surprise you? I'm a little bit surprised by Pennsylvania. I would think that they would maybe produce a little bit more. But any states that you're kind of like, that they're able to produce a couple first rounders?
I already mentioned the ones that really jumped out. It is surprising to me that there were none from Hawaii because, they always produce good linebackers, good defensive ends. And obviously you get those big Polynesian descent guys in the NFL playing for West Coast programs all the time. But now they've even started to gravitate a little bit more towards Texas, towards the Southeast, places like that. it is surprising there's nobody from Ohio, and that speaks to how national programs like Ohio State, like Georgia, uh, like Alabama, the programs who Texas is really trying to unseat at the very tippy top of college football, they don't limit themselves to their geographic region. So it should be encouraging to Longhorn fans that their head coach is doing the same.
I was talking about how it is cyclical. In the state of Texas in 2027, Jalen Brewster from Cedar Hill, number 8 overall prospect. Then you have a few others. I think Kadrian Redmond, number 106. Xavier Muhammad from South Houston, number 113. Keeping on going. King Thibodeau from Garland Lakeview Centennial. That's just 3 right there in the top 150. Ezekiel Ayungbile, top 220. Amari Vickerson, who has a Texas offer. Like, it's very cyclical. We could see these guys come in, see who Kenny Baker pursues. Obviously, he's going to go out there and give his best in some of his home regions. But now he's got a new home region in Texas, and we'll see what happens next cycle. But I think the point is Texas, a school, is unafraid to look all over the country, not just for talent, but specifically for defensive tackle talent, as it is found in a number of different places. We'll get a little bit to some Kevin Durant, some College World Series, some NBA Finals. But before we do, a word from David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
You tend to go every Monday morning, you write the weekend in sports, kind of looking over some of the big storylines that happened throughout the weekend. Maybe somewhat Texas related, but just, big things that occurred. And sorry, Indiana Pacers fans. We know what it's like to watch your star player get hurt in the winner-take-all game.
Yeah, that was a eerily familiar feeling to how Texas fans felt in 2010, sitting in, watching on TV, or leaving the Rose Bowl, where I've almost had this feeling ever since that fateful night where Marcel Darius hit Colt McCoy's shoulder and gave Nick Saban his first national championship at Alabama. Did the game ever actually happen? Because the game that I was preparing myself, the game that my friends and I prepared a whole West Coast trip around, the game that you build up in your mind for 6 weeks and you get so hyped up for, and you watch this journey that a team goes on to, almost like fulfill this destiny. It just seems like it's never occurred. I still want to see Colt McCoy and Jordan Shipley face off against Marcel Darius and Nick Saban and that Alabama team. And, it's almost like it's still hanging out there in the ether somewhere. Obviously, Garrett Gilbert probably got a little bit closer than Texas fans, like to remember or give him credit for. And it did come down to one last turnover. But yeah, I definitely am watching Tyrese Halliburton get hurt in the first quarter, 7 minutes into Game 7 of the NBA Finals, while they're trying to cap this Cinderella run against the Thunder. I was like, man, that is just a brutal gut punch of a feeling. But if there's any fan base that knows how that feels, it's Texas fans. And the thing is, you won't ever know if the Pacers would have won had Halliburton been healthy or had he played the whole game. And that's almost like what hurts the most, is the question will never be answered. So definitely a bummer for Pacers. I think they just announced right before we jumped on that it was a torn Achilles, so he's going to miss all of next season. Man, he was so fun to watch throughout this postseason. So hopefully it doesn't affect the rest of his career. Obviously, Colt McCoy was still able to go on and have a really productive, long NFL career. So hopefully Halliburton does the same. But hey, Texas is still looking to get back to the national championship game. Hopefully they're going to do it this year and next year, hoping for a couple returns here soon, but they haven't been back since that night in Pasadena. So maybe Pacers fans won't have to wait too long, but man, no, I know how that feels.
Yeah, you think there's a 5-7 season coming for the Pacers, that equivalent, basically trying to put everything on Siakam, I guess, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
luckily
tough.
they have good backup point guards in the East. Is just a dumpster fire going into next year now with Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum, and Tyrese Halliburton all having Achilles injuries. Did you see every single player in the NBA playoffs who wore the number 0 this year tore their Achilles? All 3 of them. So don't wear the number 0. Yeah.
Somebody get Jordan Pope out of there. I think he was 0. Another thing to look at for Schadenfreude of the week, if you watch the College World Series, you watch LSU win their 8th national championship. Very deserving. But, I mean, what is up with these umpires? And I did not realize that it was Angel Campos, who has a pretty shady history as far as being a MLB ump. He got basically kicked out of the MLB, and he lost. I think the Coastal Carolina coach lost his cool, but the umpire lost his cool in a massive moment. It didn't cause Coastal Carolina to lose to LSU, a very deserving champion. But I mean, no, there is no worse time for an ump show than in Omaha.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously LSU had that dominant Friday night or Saturday night performance, I guess. Cade Anderson pitching complete nine inning shutout, winning 1-0, but you just never know how something like that happening in the first inning is going to affect you. So I don't think he lost his cool. I mean, all he said on the lip reading was you missed 3 pitches. And I think that's hey man, go back to the dugout right now or you're getting thrown out. But he said that comment and then he got tossed. And then his post-game interview was just amazing when he was talking about one of the other umpires, one of the either first base or second base umpire who came over, who then fell down, that he said he got the 2-game suspension for bumping that umpire. And he said, I can't be held accountable for another grown man's athleticism or lack thereof. So that was a pretty good line. And obviously Coastal Carolina had a great run, but man, I know LSU, they got one and they were very talented. Stephen Milam, I really like that dude. He's one of my favorite college baseball players I've ever seen at shortstop, especially getting to watch him in person a couple times this year. But I feel like the Tigers stole one, and you see. And obviously 2 years ago, they had a historic team with Paul Skeens, but man, I hope Texas starts doing that because it felt like they took advantage of the field. They almost did what Nick Saban in Alabama would do a few of those years where maybe they didn't have a few things go their way. They weren't necessarily a historic team that you're going to remember forever. They just took advantage of the circumstances and they just went out and took it. And so it does make you feel a little bit more salty about the way that Texas's season ended, I think, because it shows that, man, maybe there wasn't some juggernaut team out there where you're like, we couldn't have beat them. Texas took the series against LSU this year. And who knows, with Jared Spencer going down, it may have always been destined to play out that Texas's season ended early. But that's how it left me feeling. And I don't like seeing LSU pull so far ahead of Texas on the national championship count.
Yeah, they are the team of the last 30 years. It's really hard to argue with that. I know that Perry Costello holds a not great place in the hearts of many college baseball fans, and I think Angel Campos may have joined him. Last but not least, we'll finish it up with some Longhorn news. KD is back in Texas, got traded to the Rockets. That deal apparently can't go through until July 6th because of some stipulation in Jalen Green's contract. I know the Spurs, I can see that red Spurs hat. I've never seen one of those before.
It's a burnt orange Spurs hat. So I'm kind of, lamenting the fact that KD did not end up back in San Antonio. They didn't end up getting in the mix, but gosh, it almost feels like you're familiar. I don't know if your neighborhood, they have porch pirates, but it sort of feels, like where you take the Amazon package gets stolen off your porch. It feels like that's what the Houston Rockets and Ime Udoka did to Matt Ishbia and the Suns, that they just porch pirated Kevin Durant off the Suns' doorstep and took him back to Texas. So obviously it'll be entertaining to see Durant back in Texas. I don't love the uniform he'll be wearing as a Spurs fan, but I would probably rather see a team from Texas lift the Larry O'Brien trophy next year as opposed to a team from Oklahoma do it again. But yeah, I think he's going to unlock a lot for the Rockets offense while taking some pressure off guys like Amin Thompson not having to become a superstar so fast, which I think maybe that growth curve was rushed a little bit too much last year. So I think he's exactly what they need, and they didn't have to give up any of their exciting young guys to get him, which is just, that's highway robbery.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I did not view Jalen Green as an exciting young guy anymore. I know he's still young, and I know the comparisons to SGA and even Halliburton, who made their way to different teams and excelled in their early 20s, is there.
Yeah, he's a losing player. He's the type of guy who a team would have held on to for way too long when we were growing up, because they were like, oh, this guy's an all-star. He averages this many points per game. We got to keep him. He sells jerseys. And I think NBA teams are getting smarter and realizing that's not necessarily the guy you need to hitch your wagon to.
I lost faith in him in the playoffs. It just was what it was. That 2 seed's nice. I'm glad he plays 82 games. I appreciate him. He gave a lot of effort to the Rockets as they tried to rebuild and are rebuilding successfully, but you can't go like that in the playoffs. And hey, if your 37-year-old signing is going to be Kevin Durant, it's a pretty good one. And you wrote last year when Durant was playing in the Moody Center, playing your Spurs, he's a basketball nomad. He goes from living in the DC area to going to Texas for 1 year, playing for the Sonics for a year, all those years in OKC, quickly to the West Coast, wins a few titles there, Brooklyn, all over the place. And now he's kind of in one of the places where, as he mentioned last year, he really kind of views it like a home to him.
Yeah, I think this is really his chance to attach himself to a pro fan base. He'll have his jersey retired in Golden State one day. That's just how those things work. He won 2 titles, finals MVP for both of those. But, he's never going to be beloved in the Bay Area the way that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green are, even somebody like Andre Iguodala. So I think this is sort of like a basketball nomad's last chance for, is he going to be beloved on an NBA team in the levels that I think that he wants to be. He's kind of the interesting thing about Durant is that he was almost miscast early in his career as this, all-American boy, drives a minivan, where really he's just kind of a wandering soul. And I hope that he gets some peace in Houston and finds a fan base that really appreciates him and maybe has some accolades to go along with it. Not too many. I can't wish that many on the Rockets, but yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. And I think maybe he'll finally get what he's long been looking for.
I'm looking forward to seeing him in the Toyota Center alongside all the guys that you mentioned, and a lot of burnt orange there in Toyota Center. You got DJ Augustin in the front office, freshly retired, and you also have Royale Ivy there on the bench. So a lot of familiar faces for Kevin Durant there. This has been the Reheat. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel, and of course, head to InsideTexas.com. We just talked about defensive tackle recruiting. There's a lot of different recruiting going on, and a lot of decisions should be coming out within the next month or so at this point, including this upcoming week. So stay tuned to Inside Texas. RT, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.